friends, coming to the second lecture, today we will talk about types of groups. Till now we discussed that what is a group, how we can define groups and how a group is being formed. Now the next question is that there can be a number of groups based on the purpose of an individual. People come together not only for their own individual objective, they come together for a common organizational objective. It can be a social objective, it can be any economic objective, or it can be any psychological reason that why a person joins group. So based on this reason, of different kind of reasons that why people join groups, then it can also be discussed that what are the different kinds of groups that helps an individual to solve or meet different kind of objectives and resolve their problems. So based on this, the groups can be categorized in various forms based on the size, purpose. For example, the first is primary and secondary group. Now this classification was given by Charles Houghton Cooley in 1909 and introduced this term based on certain characteristics. For example, according to Cooley, a primary group is the one where the members interact with each other frequently and the interactions are face to face, and the relationship among the members of the group is based on emotions. That means the ties are full of emotions, there are exchange of emotions and feelings among members, and the group exists permanently. For example, any family. Among family members, we all are connected to each other emotionally. We interact with every member in a very frequent fashion, and there is face-to-face interaction, and the ties are emotional. We are not interacting with the family members because there is some task assigned to us. No. For example, mother and a son, or a daughter and a mother, they all have a very permanent affection and ties to each other. Similarly, among members, for example, parents and grandparents, they all are interacting with each other because there is a sense of connection or sense of emotional connect among each other. So this is the characteristics of a primary group. The other is the secondary group. The characteristics of secondary group are completely opposite of the primary group. Why? Because the exchanges are completely based on task orientation. That means people come together, pool their talent, pool their knowledge, skills and abilities and achieve the common target and then tend to disband. So the existence of the secondary group is also not permanent. It is only short term. People come together, they achieve the target and they tend to disband, not like a family as a primary group. So when we talk about primary groups, the characteristics of primary group is completely based on face-to-face interaction. There is a feeling of we. That means people consider themselves as a one single unit, a strong unit. There is permanence. The existence of this group of primary group is permanence. The ties, there are ties of affection. The relationships are multifaceted. All the members have different kind of relationship. That means kids and grandparents, kids and parents, or parents and grandparents. There is different phases of relationship within primary group, and the relationship is non-task oriented, such as family, play groups and village community come under this category. Whereas secondary groups can be characterized based on limited face-to-face interaction. The existence is non-permanent because once the goals are achieved, the group tends to disband. There are ties of exchange. That means there is professional exchange. There is exchange of knowledge, skills and abilities, and they meet together to perform. And at the same time, the relationships are task oriented. These groups are defined by the organization structure and are directed towards organizational groups. For example, club, trade unions fall under this category. For example, in any organization, there is a trade union, there is a group within an organization which represent the other employees' conflicts and problems they face at the workplace to the higher authorities. Once these problems or conflicts are resolved, then immediately that union tends to disband. So this is the example of secondary group, that trade unions or clubs, they come together for a common objective and then which are completely based on organizational values, and they tend to disband. So this is one kind of group which was classified by Cooley in terms of primary and secondary groups. The other is formal and informal groups. Now, groups that have been established under the legal and formal authority to achieve a specific end result are known as formal groups. That means groups are structured, and that groups are being formed by the instruction of higher authorities to meet a specific task. Then it is known as a formal group. That means duties are assigned, are allocated, resources are allocated to a particular group to achieve a common task, and clear delegation of duties is there among the members. This is an example of a formal group. For example, an airline flight crew or committees or commissions or boards are the formal groups. For example, board of governors of a particular organization, where there is a chairman and there are the other directors who are taking care of their respective departments, who are the highest officials or authorities, and they tend to report to the chairman. Now, in this type of committees or boards, people come together based on the organization's instructions to resolve any problem, any conflict, or they are coming together for a specific task that has been allocated or assigned to each and every member. So this is a formal group. It can be a committee as well. It can be any legalized committee where members come together to resolve a conflict or to introduce something new or come up with something new, innovative, and then they tend to launch all together. So this is an example of a formal group, whereas the informal groups are fostered through simple physical factors such as location, or more subtle factors such as fulfillment of specific need of a set of individuals. Now, this can be the physical proximity in any office, where people come together in any organization, they interact with each other, they have some common shared values, opinions, and they tend to continue their interactions based on informality. That means there is no any such objective that is organizational. It is completely based on the exchange of opinions, views, and ideas. But at the same time, formal groups have certain characteristics. For instance, they assist in the accomplishment of group goals in a less haphazardly state, because every member in the group is carrying some expertise within himself, and he or she is using that expertise to achieve that goal, to work upon that goal. So accomplishment is very, very smooth and streamlined. It facilitates the coordination of activities or functions in the organization. When roles are being assigned as per the expertise, then the coordination of activities is very much hassle-free, because everybody is performing his or her role or job based on the expertise and instructions. The third is that they aid in establishing logical relationship among people and position. What authority a person has based on the expertise will help that person to resolve that problem. Any person with legal expertise will aid that group to resolve any legal complication. Person with any financial expertise will help that group to resolve any financial discrepancy. One person or member with any technical expertise will help the person to resolve or innovate or create or foster anything new and launch in the market. So everything is being aided in a very logical manner based on the expertise, skills, and abilities. And the most important is that formal groups ensure conformity due to assigned task roles and sanctioned norms. That means that when there is allocation of tasks to every member based on the expertise, then people tend to conform. There is compliance, there is obedience to the norms that have been established to work based on that committee or board. That means people are abiding to their expertise, and at the same time they are abiding to the rules and norms that have been established to achieve that goal. So these are the specific characteristics of any formal group. Whereas in informal group, what happens? People just interact, exchange their opinions based on their geographical location or spatial location. they tend to share their ideas and then later on tend to disband. So this is another category of type of group, that is formal and informal group. Now continuing the same discussion about formal and informal group, Dalton has identified 3 types of informal groups. The first is horizontal cliques. Now clique is again a organizational term. Within the group itself, when people tend to form another groups, that is known as a clique. For example, a member of 10 members, and within that 10 members only a group, another subgroup is also formed where 2 or 3 members are very much attracted to each other and they do not want the other members to interact with them. So these are the form of cliques. We can also call it a subgroup, but actually the right term is clique. So Dalton has identified 3 kinds of informal groups. Horizontal cliques, this encompass members who operate at the same level within the same area. For example, in any organization, maybe it can be any group of managers who are working in marketing department. All are middle level managers, and maybe they form their own group because of physical proximity, and they tend to form an informal group because they are working in the same department at the same level. So this is known as horizontal clique. The other is vertical clique, when people tend to interact with each other, that they are not within the same area or department, but they tend to interact people or managers coming from different departments of the same organization. That means these encompass individuals from different levels within a different area of the department. Maybe one manager is from marketing department, one manager may be from the finance department, but since they have some common ideas or similarities, so people are attracted to each other and they form their own clique, which is termed as vertical clique. And the other is random groups. These are composed of members of various areas of department and emerge because of interaction between individuals in different departments to get the task done. For example, when any committee has been formed, then maybe members are coming from different levels and expertise, but at the same time, when there is some deep down, when there is some kind of similarities among these members, then they also emerge within themselves as another form of random informal group. So people tend to come together for a common task, but within that commonality, they also establish or emerge as another form of informal group. So the functions of the informal groups are that it is an outlet to gratify the need for affiliation. When there is similarity within the members, then people tend to form an informal group. Within the organization, the most important feature, or a means of developing, enhancing or confirming a sense of identity and maintaining self-esteem. When people tend to interact with each other at the same level, they are maintaining some or experiencing a sense of equality, that we are interacting at the same level and there is some sort of similarity in our views, ideas and opinions, and they come close and they form an informal group. The third is that there is a means of increase in security and sense of power for coping external threats and dangers. For example, any rumor that is being moving around in the organization, sometimes members or employees get threatened by those rumors as well. And how to cope with that kind of anxiety and threat they experience, then they tend to share with the other members or colleagues or co-workers, and they form such kind of informal groups and they try to cope up with such kind of anxiety, threats and dangers. And the last is that it acts as a means of communication between superordinates and subordinates. That means even it is vertical clique, people get a chance to enhance their communication, express more towards other authorities because people are coming from different levels, and the means of communication becomes more expansive and open. So this is an formal and informal group which is very much common in our day-to-day life within organizations, that how people tend to maintain relationships, maintain communication, maintain their performances based on formal and informal groups. The third is in-group and out-group. This is something which is completely based on the feeling of membership. These classification was given by William Sumner in 1908 and attempted to describe the feelings of we and they generated through group membership. That means intra and intergroup. When we are within the group, then we are we, right? It is a feeling that we are the group. When we are perceiving the other group, then that is the intergroup, it is they. Immediately we find that kind of discrimination between us and them, we and they, because we are defining our boundaries and we are not allowing the other members of the group or external group or other group to enter in our group. So Sumner identified, based on the membership, there are two types of group, in group and out group. When we talk about in group, there is a feeling of we, and when we talk about out group, then that means we are calling them they. This is a feeling. So this is in group and out group. So the notion of in group can be defined as a circle of people in which a person feels at home, there is a sense of belongingness, and they are typified by family, friendship, cliques, social and religious groups. Or the members have common object of common interest. Why? Because people are together obviously for a common interest. So they identify themselves, they relate to each other very well. And this helps them to develop a strong sense of belongingness and a strong feeling of we. They have a sense of we feeling. For example, factory workers have a sense of togetherness and represent power structure. For example, any trade union. People have problems, workers have, assembly line workers have some problem, have conflict with the higher authorities. They come together, which gives them a feeling of we, and that feeling of we gives them power. That structure becomes so powerful that sometimes the higher authorities or management fails to cope up with that kind of power structure. So this is in group, whereas out group is a circle of people to which a person feels he or she does not belong to. Definitely, when we are drawing a boundary for our group members, then we are not relating to the external groups. So this out group surrounds us everywhere, and we try to differentiate or discriminate between us and them. So this is out group. So there is a feeling of they for the other members of the group or the intergroup members. So to reach the out group is the middle class. Or it can be that this is my group and this is their group. We specialize in this, our group specialize in this kind of abilities, and the other group specialize in that kind, in a different kind of abilities, and that is where we are maintaining that difference between the two groups based on in group and out group. That it is actually identifying a strong sense of membership among people within the group itself, right? And the fourth is dyad and triad. That means groups are also classified based on the size. If it is based on the organization, it is based on membership, then groups are also classified based on the size, depending on the size of the number of members in any group. So it can be classified based on the size, that is dyad and triad. So dyad is a two-person group. That means two persons are there, they are meeting for the common objective, and their existence, that is existence of a dyad based on two-person, depends on the participation of members. That means even two people are there, they are forming a group for common objective, but still two members have to participate at equal level. If either withdraws, then the group ceases to exist. Obviously, one person cannot take up all the responsibilities, but if responsibilities are also divided in two people or in a dyad, then only the group can exist. So when we are talking about dyad, then if one person tends to withdraw from the responsibilities, then definitely the functioning becomes collapsed and the group ceases to exist. So there is no mediator in the dyad to reconcile the conflicts between the members. But at the same time, when we are talking about triad, it is three or more than three people. So even if one member tends to withdraw from the group, still the group is functional, because the group activities are taken up by the other members of the group, and the group is more reconcilable in the sense that even if there is a conflict in a triad, then there can be a mediator who can resolve the conflict, whereas in dyad there can be no mediator who can reconcile the conflicts. It is a big difference between these two types of groups. So, even in triad, when there is any conflict, the mediator is there to reconcile the conflicts among the members, and at the same time there is majority, minority and coalition. That means power is also there, appropriate use of power is also there. That means when there is majority, members become powerful and functioning becomes more effective. Sometimes there is minority and sometimes a decision can be declined because of minority. No favor was given to a particular solution, then it leads to minority. And at the same time there is coalition, which prevents triad from becoming static and forms new relationship to maintain solidarity within the group. That means within the triad itself, when people, two or more than two people come together for some more collaborations and coalition formation, then again the group becomes highly functional. So based on the size, dyad and triad, triad has definitely more chances for its existence, whereas in dyad it is difficult for dyad to exist in long run, because if there is any withdrawal, then groups disbands. If there is any conflict, then again the group also ceases to exist. But these problems can be resolved if there is a triad. So we can say that the major characteristics of a triad is that there is possibility of majority, minority and coalitions, and prevent triad from becoming a static and forms new relationships to maintain solidarity within the group. Next is interest and friendship group. These are types of informal groups when people come together to show their concern and at the same time to achieve a common objective. So within an organization, this might be a group of people who come together to demand better working conditions or a better employee evaluation process, for example, a labor union. Now, in this kind of interest groups, a trade union is there. People come forward all together and represent the whole organization that how a particular rule should be established, introduced or modified for the betterment of the working conditions. For example, assembly line workers, maybe the temperature of the assembly line, temperature of the working area of the assembly line worker is very hot, and it becomes uncomfortable for the workers to perform their tasks. So union can come together to satisfy this interest, to enhance their working condition to the higher authorities or to the management people, and they tend to satisfy this interest because when there is more majority to any particular interest of the group, then it can be satisfied and established. So this is an interest group in any organization. The other is the friendship group. It is a group of people who have come together because they share common ideas, common interests or other similarities like age or ethnic background. For example, in any Indian organization, there is so much of diversity in workplaces. For example, in any IT industry, people are coming from all the corners of India and they come together to work together in one workplace. So people tend to interact with other employees who are from the similar ethnic backgrounds because there is more comfort in interacting in their own native language, and definitely they share more interest, common interest, ideas and beliefs, and they come together even in that similar workplaces. So all these factors play a major role. Maybe young people would come all together and form a group, informal group or friendship group, and they tend to exchange their ideas. So interest and friendship group are the one where they tend to focus on their interest, and at the same time members come together to satisfy their own interest for their own existence within the same group, right? So we will stop here and we will meet in the next lecture, in the third lecture, where we will talk about group work. Thank you.